What's up, guys? This is Ian here, coach of your Ladner Lanturn, bringing you guys our... This is not a week. This is the playoff semifinals, or the Moon Conference Finals, whatever you'd like to call it. You could call it the second round of the playoffs. You could call it the Moon Conference Finals. You could call it the UPBA semifinals. It really doesn't matter. We are taking on my friend Bob and the Atlantic City Altarias. This is our third face-off against him this season. We played him in week 1, then we played him in week 12, and now we are playing him in the playoffs. As you guys would know, the week 12 match meant absolutely nothing because Bob had already secured this bye for this spot, and we were going on to play CSAXCR, who we then beat last week in the quarterfinals. So, the most recent news on our teams is that we have no idea what we're bringing against each other. However, we did have a match in week 1, so there's a little bit of a basis to go off of here. So in that match, I ended up bringing Kyurem-Black, Suicune, Infernape, Registeel, Mimikyu, and Mega Absol. So we're bringing a relatively similar team. And he ended up bringing Victini, Jolteon, Heracross, Kartana, Hydreigon, and Mega Blastoise. Since then, I have dropped Empoleon and Virizion, which I had initially for Ambipom and Crobat, and he had Kartana and Hydreigon, which he brought against me, and he's dropped those for Bisharp and Dragonite. So let's run through his team really quickly here then. He's got Victini, which is his Super Z user. He's got Florges, he's got Jolteon, he's got Heracross, which is a offensive Z user. He's got Lurantis, he's got Leavanny, he's got Bisharp, he's got Dragonite, which is an offensive Z user. He's got Komala, he's got Haunter, and he's got Mega Blastoise. I am not anticipating him to bring Lurantis, Komala, or Haunter. I think they're all really bad against my team. I'm also anticipating this to be a fairly hyper-offensive game, so I don't think that he needs Komala for the hazard removal. I also don't think he's even going to bother bringing Rapid Spin on Mega Blastoise. Last time he brought a max HP, max special attack Mega Blastoise against me, which put in work, ended up stopping my Infernape from doing much of anything. I ended up losing momentum pretty hard on that in that game by doubling from Suicune into Mega Absol. Well, it wasn't even Mega yet, it was just a regular Absol on his Blastoise, and he ended up double Aura Sphering, which made absolutely no sense to me. I thought there was no reason for him not to attempt to click Dark Pulse, which would have at least granted him the potential flinch. I didn't think that Aura Sphere was the play whatsoever from his side of the field because Suicune just ate whatever the heck he wanted to throw at it, so I figured he would switch. He did not bring Florges last time, which is kind of a threat, but we've got a lot of prep for Florges. I should have mentioned it at the beginning, but this is going to be a little bit of a longer team builder just because I have a lot of points I want to talk about in how I'm building for Bob and how I prepared for his team. But let's touch on the priority, etc. that he has. He has priority in Victini with Quick Attack, Jolteon with Quick Attack, Bisharp with Sucker Punch, Komala with Sucker Punch, Haunter with Sucker Punch, Dragonite with Extreme Speed, Mega Blastoise with Aqua Jet. He has Hazard setting in Leavanny with Sticky Webs and Bisharp with Stealth Rocks. The Sticky Webs in particular we've prepped really hard for. I'm not too concerned about the Stealth Rocks if he does bring that. Removal wise, he only has he's got Dragonite with Defog, Komala with Rapid Spin, and Blastoise with Rapid Spin. He has 4 times weaknesses in Heracross to Flying, Leavanny to Flying and Fire, Bisharp to Fighting, and Dragonite to Ice. So we are covering our bases with all of those 4 times weaknesses as well. Biggest threats that I see coming, Victini, Heracross, Jolteon. For the most part, I don't have good checks to Jolteon at all. Last time he brought an Agility baton passing Jolteon into his SD Kartana. I think it's potentially plausible that he does that into the Bisharp potentially, or even the Heracross. He could Agility Baton Pass and then SD on the Heracross as well. Although I do think that it's a little less effective than what he was doing with Kartana. Both of those are very, very possible. Dragon Dance Dragonite is a threat. If he brings Banded Victini like he did last time, or if he brings the same Blastoise set that like he did last time, those are also very threatening. I've shown him the power of Quick Feed Jolteon as well, so that he could potentially be bringing that, although don't think it matters really, because I'm not bringing Heliolisk, and the only electric coverage I have is on Kyurem-Black with Terrible that goes through his Volt Absorb anyways. So Quick Feed is probably the better play on his part. Yeah, Lurantis has a very poor matchup against my team in general. Kyurem-Black kind of destroys it, Infernape destroys it, Crobat destroys it, Ambipom destroys it, Mega Absol destroys it, and Piloswine destroys it as well because it's so damn slow. So yeah, I don't foresee him bringing Lurantis whatsoever. I don't think it makes sense at all, and I don't have, well, I do have Crocodile as an Intimidate user, but I don't think that Contrary would come in very handy against my team either. Kamala. Kamala just hard loses to Infernape. It's also set up fodder for my Mimikyu since he can't really touch me. Like, he'd have Shadow Claw, but at the same time, Play Rough kind of just bodies it. Leavanny I can see coming because webs kind of hinder my team a lot, but we're playing around that. What else am I not? Oh, Scarf Haunter could be a threat, but I kind of just blissfully ignored Scarf Haunter, just like I blissfully ignored the fact that my team is very weak to Jolteon, especially if he's Specs. I don't really have a good switch into Jolteon. It's kind of Kyurem, and that's like about it. Yeah, worthy to note, he only has one Mon that can dodge Earthquake, and that's Dragonite, but we're not bringing Crocodile, and we're not bringing Registeel that might pack it, and we're not bringing Piloswine. All for various reasons. Piloswine Ice Shard might be helpful against the Dragonite, but if he has multi-skill up, then it's not so great, but I have Rocks on the Piloswine, etc, etc, etc. My reasoning for not bringing Crocodile is I think it's got a really bad matchup against the Heracross if he's Scarfed Heracross. I think it could be okay if I was like Scarf Crocodile to like Pursuit Trap Victini or something like that, but I didn't see Crocodile doing much against the Blastoise or the Florges either. Heliolisk, I was considering in my last slot. I really was considering Heliolisk in my last slot because I think Specs Heliolisk can actually put in a lot of work against his team. But I ended up going against that idea because I found that another Mon kind of just destroyed him completely. Registeel I brought last time as a Spadef wall, and it ended up just dying to a Sacred Sword from Kartana. I'm anticipating the Heracross to sort of do the same thing this time with the close combat, so I'm not bringing it. Piloswine, I've gone over why I'm not bringing that. Essentially, it's too slow against his team, and it's sort of set up fodder for a lot of his Mons. And Mega Absol, I actually found didn't have the greatest matchup last time, and I didn't really see a reason to bring it again this time when he's got Extreme Speed Dragonite. I basically can't touch his team with Mega Absol. Its purpose last time was to Pursuit Trap the Victini and get some knockoffs off, and it ended up not doing that either. So those are the Mons I'm not bringing. Let's talk about the Mons I am bringing. This Ambipom is 100% my lead every time. It is an anti-lead against the Leavanny. That's why we have Fake Out going on there with the Life Orb Fake Out into any of my moves after that kills the Leavanny, and we're always going to be faster than it unless he's Scarf Webs for some reason. Ambipom, I'm actually changing the name. I think I brought it once against Byron, and then another time maybe, and it was named Catch These because Catch These Hands, but sorry, pardon me. I actually changed it to TTT, which stands for To The Top, because Joey or PokeAimMD is doing this Ambipom to the Top series in UU. I think it's a really cool idea, and I'm promoting it in my own special way. Yeah, so Fake Out's really good. U-Turn is nice to get some chip off, especially if his switch-in is like Florges. I would imagine if he's bringing Haunter, that's his switch to Ambipom. Bisharp could also be a decent switch in Ambipom, but Bisharp takes a U-turn neutrally, and it's going to do quite a bit of damage. Ice Punch is there specifically for the Dragonite, also the Lurantis, but if he wants to switch in, then I can Fake Out into Ice Punch on the Dragonite, and we're going to be faster than the Dragonite, so that's really good tech. And the Return is my move that I can deal the most damage with, because Tail Slap is not released in well, it is released in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, but we're still playing on Sun and Moon rules, and so Tail Slap is not released. So Return is going to actually hit his team like a truck. Ambipom is actually a very, very, very strong Pokemon. You can see it's only a base 100 attack, but we're able to run Adamant this week, So yeah, so let's talk about the EVs then real quick. I'm running max speed adamant. This lets us outpace Victini by 1 point, which is basically the one thing I can speed creep. He has a very weird speed gap between Jolteon at 130 and then Victini at 100. He doesn't really have very many threats, and then below that he has Haunter and Leavanny at 95 and 92. Those are his 90 bases, and neither of those have been big threats this entire season. So essentially he drops from 100 to 85 with his next threat being Heracross. So that's Ambipom. Next up is Suicune, a little bit more boring. We're bringing a fully physically defensive Suicune. We brought the exact same set as this, except we had Arrest instead of Roar last time to counter Victini. Yet again, it is our only Victini check. I really don't have good switch-ins to Victini, and Suicune is going to have to be it. Besides that, I have a lot of Mons that will outspeed the Victini if he's banded, and so I can revenge kill it with them. But Suicune is really my dedicated switch in to it. Scald hits his entire team really well. Really only the Lurantis and Leavanny don't want to, and the Mega Blastoise can take it. Florges can obviously take any of these hits, but that's what we have Toxic there for, is if Florges is his switch into this. I can't imagine why Florges would be his switch into this, but we also, as you can see up there, we have Crobat, so Crobat is our switch into Florges, unless he has Psychic, and then we're kind of SOL. We have Roar on here in case he is Calm Mind Florges, because I can switch this one on Florges as well, and just because the Suicune is a natural bulk, and we'll be able to roar it out. Something like a Dragonite Dragon Dancing up, if I can break its multiscale, it dies to an Ice Beam, but if I can't, then Roar is the next best play in my mind. Bisharp, another Mon that I can roar out. If he does bring Lurantis, then Suicune's maybe not the best check to that, but that's also a potential. Blastoise I don't think gets set up, so I'm not too worried about that, but Suicune can take all of Blastoise's moves really well as well, like we saw in the last game. Max HP, max defense, bold. Again, we're trying to tank Victini's hits. Apparently we die to 2 fusion bolts from banded Victini anyways, but at the very least we'll be able to revenge kill it with something else, or at least set up with something to be able to deal with it later. Next up is Crobat or Batdomen. Black Sludge Infiltrator is very key. If he wants to set up with a sub with something, I'm not having any of those shenanigans, and we're going to go right through it. Brave Bird, Defog, Roost, and U-Turn. Brave Bird is there to deal with the Heracross primarily, although Brave Bird is my best attacking move. Defog is there in case he actually does get up the webs and I can't stop him. Roost is there for some good recovery, especially because we're a defensive Mon, and U-Turn is there for some good momentum, especially against the Bisharp. We're running max HP, max defense, actually, because I needed a defensive check to the Heracross. I'm really hoping we can eat a Stone Edge with this spread. I doubt it, but at the same time, we're eating a Close Combat and a Mega Horn for breakfast. Both of those moves, I believe, are 4 times resisted. And yeah, so Heracross can't really touch this unless he hits a Stone Edge or predicts me and uses Stone Edge. Who knows if he'll even run Stone Edge? He probably would run Stone Edge, but it doesn't really do anything against my team except for hit Crobat. Crobat's abusing the 4 times weaknesses of Heracross and Leavanny, and you'll notice we're not running any speed because we could only speed tie with Jolteon, and I really don't care about speed tying with Jolteon. There's no way, we can't do anything to Jolteon anyways with Crobat, so I decided to scrap that idea of trying to speed tie with Jolteon, and we'll have full bulk. Even with no speed, we actually are still outspeeding the Florges. We're still outspeeding the Heracross by 1 point. If he's Jolly Heracross, we're actually still outspeeding it, unless he's Scarfed. And a lot of the other Mons on this team we're still outspeeding. Mega Blastoise, for example. Adamant Leavanny, we're still outspeeding. Bisharp, we're outspeeding still. Dragonite, we're still outspeeding. So all of his lower tier speed tiers, we're still outspeeding with no speed investment, so I can be happy with that. Next up is another part of our pivoting core here. We've kind of got a pivot core of these 3 Mons, Ambipom, Crobat, and Infernape. Running Poisonium, Z, Iron Fist, and Infernape this week. The first time I played him, I brought Fightinium Z Close Combat, and it ended up just being wasted on a Jolteon. I was trying to Fightinium Z the Blastoise, and he doubled into Jolteon, which was a pain in the ass. But we're bringing Z Gunkshot this week to deal with the Florges. Z Gunkshot also hits his team really, really hard. Obviously, Close Combat is more of a consistent move, especially for Infernape, but something like Z Gunkshot is going to hit the Dragonite better, it's going to hit the Victini better, it's going to hit the Florges amazingly well. That thing dies to a Z Gunkshot after a tiny bit of chip if he's the standard set. We will not be able to affect the Bisharp, it's not going to be very effective on the Haunter, and it's not going to be that great against the Heracross, but we have answers to some of those. We're running the Mach Punch to deal with the Bisharp. I really needed a little bit of priority on Infernape this week just to deal with like picking things off, and specifically the Bisharp, because Mach Punch will, I believe, out-prioritize Sucker Punch. Oh, I'm not sure on that one. I might have to look it up again. I'm not entirely sure on that, but at the very least, we can tank a Sucker Punch because we'll resist it, and Mach Punch will kill it if that's what he wants to go for, or if he wants to try and set up on me or something and thinks that I'm scarfed, then yeah, that's a thing too. U-turn for momentum yet again, and I'm actually bringing Fire Punch because I don't want to take Flare Blitz recoil against his team, and Iron Fist boosted Fire Punch is close to as good as Flare Blitz would be, with Stab plus the Iron Fist boost, and it's enough that I don't care, because it's going to hit the Jolteon just as well, it's going to hit the Leavanny just as well, the Lurantis just as well, it's going to hit the Bisharp just as well, it's going to hit the Kamala just as well, it's going to hit the Florges just as well. So honestly, I really don't need the Flare Blitz, because everything that I'm going to be hitting for neutral or super effective damage, Fire Punch does better for my longevity than Flare Blitz would. Granted, Flare Blitz might be able to do that little bit extra damage to something like a Victini, a Dragonite, or a Blastoise in the end game, but I don't care too much. That's kind of my thought process on the matter. We're running 192 speed with Jolly, which lets us outspeed the Victini by 1 point. Again, I think Banded Victini is kind of a good bring on his part. He can't really outspeed a ton of my mons unless he's bringing a Scarf, and if he's bringing a Scarf, then he's not going to be 2-hit KOing my Suicune. I think he needs to bring Band to actually break through my walls with Victini as his wall breaker. He does have very good wall breaking options, but I have very good revenge killing options, and his team has very poor Scarf options. Like, in reality, you would generally only see Heracross and Victini used as Scarfers, and both of those are much better with an attack boosting item rather than Scarf on them to wall break with. So that's my thought process there. Max attack, and I pop the rest into HP because it's going to be more beneficial to tank Moonblasts better. Obviously we're not tanking shit from a Blastoise, but again, tanking Moonblast better. Maybe we can live a V-Crate, I'm not entirely sure on that. Next up is pretty much the premier revenge killer on our team this week. We're bringing Choice Scarf Kyurem-Black. I believe I brought the exact same set. It's pretty close to the same set as in week 1. We are bringing Iron Head over Earth Power, I believe. I had the Earth Power on there for the Victini, and I decided to scrap. Actually, we're bringing Outrage over over Dragon Claw too. I didn't want to lock myself into Dragon Claw against his team last time, or I did want to lock myself into Dragon Claw against his team last time because he had High Dragon, but I actually need the Outrage to do a lot of things this week. It's going to do a shitload more damage to things like the Victini, things like the Mega Blastoise, things like the Heracross, things that can actually come in and tank a Kyurem-Black hit. Once the Florges is dead, I can lock myself into Outrage reliably at the end of the game and kill 2 things, pretty much, guaranteed, and then if I'm lucky, kill a 3rd thing. Ice Beam hits the Dragonite, but it's also really good neutral damage on things like Jolteon switching in, on Lurantis, on Leavanny, on Heracross switching in. He does not have a ground type, and Terravolt lets me go through Volt Absorb, so I can actually lock myself into Fusion Bolt very reliably, and his team, his electric resists are Lurantis and Leavanny. Those are very poor electric resists. I might even, well, no, my lead option is Ambipom 100% of the time. Even if he doesn't bring Leavanny, I think Ambipom is just a good lead to get a fake out off, and then a U-turn into something else. However, Scarf Fusion Bolt can tear through his team, just like Outrage. If Florges is his switch-in, then I have the Iron Head for that. We are running Naive because I've got the Ice Beam on there, although we are physically biased. I wanted to get the most out of my Ice Beam as I possibly could on the neutral targets. Oh, keep in mind Terrorvolt does go through multi-scale, so Dragonite will 100% of the time die to an Ice Beam, and I'm always going to outspeed it, even if he's at +1, because our speed tier is enough to outspeed his. We are actually outspeeding the Heracross with this as well, which still puts us higher than outspeeding the Dragonite at +1. So we're going to be outspeeding Scarfed Heracross with this as well, and we can outrage the hell out of that. We're running max attack because we're a monster with 439 attack, 72 in HP for an odd value, and then I just popped the last 8 EVs into defense and special attack. I didn't really want to go overboard with the special attack because we don't really need the investment. Just the non-minus nature helps out a lot more. Obviously, we're not going to be eating Moonblast from Florges anyways, but that's pretty much his only special threat to the Kyurem at least, so that's kind of why I went with the naive nature. And last but not least is kind of the backup win con, I want to say. In reality, Kyurem-Black is probably the late game win con that I need to keep alive and keep healthy. For revenge killing as well as outrage spam at the end of the game, but Mimikyu is a very good option for me this week. I think that he thinks that I'm going to bring Z-Splash. Now, I have brought Z-Splash, I believe, 3 or 4 times in this league, and Mimikyu in the regular season was the kill leader. Mimikyu also picked up, I think, 3 kills in our quarterfinal match against CSAXCR. We don't actually keep, I haven't been keeping track of the playoff kills in terms of the kill leaders. I thought that regular season sort of just made that a little more solid, and then it was sort of like done at the end of the regular season for kill leaders. But if you add that up, Mimikyu has 22 kills this season, and is by far the best member of my team. I feel like I've used Mimikyu really well, and in week 1 I ended up bringing red card Mimikyu, which stopped his Kartana from sweeping. However, without Kartana there, his Sword Stance options are very poor, and I have better ways to deal with his to revenge kill him because his team got a lot slower. Therefore, I'm not bringing red card Mimikyu. We're bringing a very standard Mimikyu set with SD, Shadow Claw, Shadow Sneak, Player Off, and Life Orb. This can tear through his team after a Sword Stance. I don't need +3 to tear through his team. I just need +2. And because of his speed tiering, we can afford to run Adamant as well. Mimikyu is outspeeding the Dragonite. After +2, Heracross kind of dies to a Shadow Sneak after some chip. So that's why we're running Adamant with 228 speed. If I wanted to outspeed the Heracross, I could, but I'd rather have the extra damage, especially in such a game that relies on me having pure power. 28 in Spadef means that Florges is kind of set up fodder. Obviously, we're going to eat a Moonblast through our disguise, and then we can eat another Moonblast. And if we have to, we can just wall break with Mimikyu from there. As long as Florges is dead, Kyurem-Black destroys his team late game. And if we can use Florges' setup fodder from Mimikyu to get an SD off and then a player off kill or a Shadow Claw crit or something like that, then I'm going to abuse the hell out of that. We're not running rocks, so I can't just pick off like the Dragonite or something like that at +2. A lot of his team, well, he's got one good Ghost Resist in Bisharp, and that is it. He's got a Ghost Immunity in Komala, however, but player off can 2-hit KO that at +2. So I'm really counting on Mimikyu. Okay, so the real strat is I'm really counting on Mimikyu, Ambipom, and Infernape to wall break this week. Then I'm counting on Suicune and Crobat to be able to tank hits. I need Infernape, Crobat, and Ambipom to get me the momentum that I need, and I need Kyurem-Black to finish off the game strong. I almost regret drafting Kyurem-Black at this stage. I have been all season, honestly. I picked it third overall. I don't know if it was worth it. Infernape, Kyurem-Black, and Mimikyu have been the offensive stars of my team this entire season, and it needs to come down to this. This is the biggest match. I don't know what our chances would be if we made it to the finals. Both teams in the Sun Conference that are playing in that semifinals, we lost to in the regular season. However, we lost to the Atlantic City Altarias in the regular season. We also lost to the Tacoma Tapus in the regular season. Heading into the playoffs, we'd even lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers in the regular season. They were 5 of our 6 losses in the regular season. All of the other playoff teams, we ended up beating everyone lower than us except for Jed and the Adelaide Red Rex. He was the only other loss that we had. So we're essentially the underdog of this playoffs, and I'm hoping to win this match and at least prove to myself that I'm worthy of finishing top 2 in this league. I think that we've improved a lot throughout the season, and I'm really hoping to make that final push and make finals. We're playing Bob, coach of the Atlantic Altarias, in the second round of the playoffs, the semifinals, or the Moon Conference Finals, whatever you want to call it, and I will catch you guys for the match.